Hello, everyone. Well, probably you're listening here by yourself, so hello to you. And if you're listening with people, then hello to you and folk, company, the people that you're with, your family, your loved ones. It's me, is Valkyria Vorder Reina. That's me, Valkyrie Vorder Reina. Valkyrie of the Veil, High Priestess, here to tell you about what's going on in astrology today and the magic that is happening. So let's get into it because Saturn has gone direct, and I'm so excited for this because Saturn is one of those planets that is so it is so very like structure oriented, and it's been in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is a little bit different. It's not a bad thing, just a little bit different because Pisces is the energy of being really like in between. It's the spiritual spaces. It's the things unseen. It's like taking the leap of faith and like doing what you want and just having a know about things, even if you're unable to articulate it. And that's the difference between Pisces and Saturn energy is Saturn is all about articulation. So we have a little bit of a rift or a little bit of like a drift between the two of these placements. When Saturn is in Pisces, it is a time of structure and order when it comes to spiritual practices. So since Saturn has been retrograde, because retrogrades are about looking back at things and looking back at what has been done and what could have been done differently, we're tying the past of things that have passed into our present moment. So it's like weavings that we've already done, workings that we've already done, spells that we've already done, work that has already been done. If you are someone who is a weaver, who is a believer, who practices magic and just sits in the spirit and your spirituality, however it is that you pronounce those things for yourself, then more than likely during this Saturn retrograde, which has started, it started on June 17th. So since June 17th, we have been going backwards. We've been looking at weavings that we've already done. We've been tying them into the future, the present moment, the future moments, because one thing about weavings, it's true. One thing about weavings and workings and magic is that once you do them, they will come through. It's like what I tell people is you can't unring a bell. So once you put it out there, it's woven and it will grow unless you do an active reversal of it or an active like be done kind of casting, So with Saturn in retrograde, we've been really like going back and questioning things that have worked for us in our spiritual practices, the order, maybe the way that you keep your altar if you're someone who has an altar practice, different orders and structures when it comes to meditations. I know a lot of people that I've been talking to have been more structured in their practice recently, have been in more order with their practice recently. And probably because of this Pisces energy, it's been in the younger degrees. And so when we have placements in the younger degrees, and what do I mean by younger? Like a smaller number. So when you look at degree theory, one of the things in degree theory is that the smaller the number is like youthful, it's more innocent, it's more childlike. And then when you get up into the higher numbers, then it starts to be like very serious, and there's lots of wisdom, there's lots of accumulation. So Saturn has been going retrograde in the more youthful energies of Pisces. So it's very much the like energies of the children, the energies of the babies, which also means, thank you, Spirit. I love you, Spirit, and the spirits of love. That also means that there is going to be this energy of probably looking at different spiritual structures that you had when you were a kid. And how do kids practice magic? They do it and they don't even realize it. It's like they do it and they don't even see that they're practicing magic because they have yet to grow up in a world that tells them about magic, or that magic is bad or magic is good, or how to practice magic. They don't have the influence of other people's opinions. They don't have the influence of other people's words or other people's orders or other people's structures. So you may find yourself too, since this Saturn retrograde has been happening, you may have found yourself going back and kind of like in the garden of your spirit practice, weeding out other people's opinions and weeding out all the things that don't really benefit you when it comes to the flow and the nature of your practice, the things that don't really help you grow, because a garden also has structure. We in gardens, usually, not all the time, but sometimes people very intentionally put things in places. That's also a form of order and structure when it comes to that Saturn energy. So Saturn right now is gone direct, which I'm so excited. It's so good because now it's at the 0 degree. And I think that this is very interesting. We had Saturn go through Pisces and then it retrograded through Pisces in the young degrees. And it's all the way back at the beginning. So it's like we started walking into something with our order in our spiritual practice. We started walking into some kind of structure. We started walking into, and to see how this affects you, if you look at your Pisces placements and where your Saturn is in your chart, that will help you to understand how this retrograde and how this Saturn going direct, how that's going to really sit with you and affect you and alter you. It's all altering, the planets move, it alters us. That's what it is, because we ourselves are an altar. Speaking of spiritual structures and altar practices, we ourselves are an altar. So we started something. We started the moving of spiritual structure, spiritual order, and having that Saturn energy be in our spiritual practices, having order, having structure. Things need to be ordered. They need to be structured. And so we started walking into that. Maybe you picked up a meditation practice. Maybe you started practicing and giving offerings to a new spirit. Maybe you started giving more offerings to yourself. Maybe you started giving more offerings to the land. There's so many different spiritual practices because we're all different people. So we all have different practices. So if there's something that you picked up, and actually I kind of want to look that up before we get any further. I want to know, because I didn't look this up before I started recording the show. I want to know when Saturn first entered Pisces so that we kind of have a date range of where we started this. So give me just a moment. And I'm going to look that up. Saturn enters Pisces probably in the beginning of 2023. But let's just double check and make sure. March 7th of 2023. There it is. March 7th, 2023. And it'll be there until May 24th of 2025. Wow. So we have a while, honestly. That's a big... Saturn is is slow. And it's also, I like to talk about Saturn as like, it's gravity. It's gravity. That Saturn is very gravitational energy, because what is it about gravity that you cannot do? You cannot escape it. It is a system. It is a structure. It is an order that has to be. And that is Saturn energy. It has to be. And even when we go up into space, even when we go up into a 0 gravity, we still, as humans, relate that to the system of gravity, because there is the absence of that system, which technically means that it's still a part of that system. So that's the Saturn energy. So that's what's moving through the Pisces energy from March 7th. Well, it entered March 7th. So think about from March until June, the beginning of March to the middle of June of 2023. And this is why I looked up the dates, because from March 7th to June, 17th? I don't remember the exact date at this moment, but the middle of June. What were you doing in your spiritual practice that was something new? I know for me, my spiritual practice is also about the things that I do on the internet and like how I communicate with people and the services I offer to people. So it could be the different ways that your spirituality is ingrained in your life. Are you a part of friend groups that talk about spirituality? Do you have structures and order in your life where your spirituality is involved in it, even if it's not maybe like the main focus, or it's the main focus and there's other things involved? It could be at your job or your work. That's a very structured and orderly thing. It could have to do with how you're talking about spirituality and money, because that is very Saturn Capricorn energy, and your resources also. So if you go back to the beginning of March and think back for yourself, what is it that you were doing and started? What did you start at the beginning of March 7th, that really was walking into a new, because it's a new transit, we're entering Saturn in Pisces March 7th, is new. So a new transit of spiritual structure and order. What were you bringing into your life that was new spiritual structure and order? Because what we're seeing collectively is we walked in that from March 7th until the middle of June when this retrograde of Saturn begins. And since June, we've been basically like taking back steps. We're walking things back. We walked it back. Oh, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. That did work, but I still got to look back. I still got to remind myself why I'm doing this and where this is coming from. And so now it goes direct. Now Saturn goes direct and we're back at zero again. We're back at 0 degrees Pisces, which to me is wild because it's like it's not very often that you are able to begin something and go a little ways into it. We're like a couple months into it, right? We're a couple months into it, March to June, we're a couple months into it. And then we have the opportunity to really look back and be like, is there a better foundation that I could build for myself? Is there a better way that I can do things in this spiritual structure and this spiritual order that I'm bringing into my life? We really got the opportunity to reconsider some things. And Saturn is not that forgiving. So the fact that we have had the ability and the opportunity to have a form of reconsideration in this new chapter of spiritual structure and spiritual order, I'm so very grateful for, because usually Saturn energy, when it hits hard. Like Saturn energy, especially for people like myself, personally, my Jupiter is ruled by Capricorn, which is a Saturn placement. So if you have any type of like Jupiter, the expansion, when it comes to this Capricorn energy, this Saturn energy, then that is very like really any Capricorn, Saturn placements in your chart. Like if you are not taken care of, and this is why the Saturn return, when people go through the Saturn return, and what do I mean by Saturn return? When your Saturn placement comes back to the same spot in your chart when you were born. Takes about 27 and a half to 29 years. It really depends. So it depends on how you look on it, and like how you're gauging it is really what I should say about that. It depends on how you look at the chart. Are you gauging it depending on like the sign versus degrees? And so there's different specificities you can get into, but generally speaking, it takes about 30 years for that to really come through and be finished. And so that's just what it is. That's what it is. And that's why when people go through their Saturn returns around from the ages of like 27 to 30, that's why sometimes people's lives like are really like, you got to catch up on the paperwork, or you got to like, there's all these things that could happen that may not be super fun. It's like you realize that you're out of order and you got to get back in order. That's the Saturn return energy. And it's not always fun. However, however is clever. So you know what? Let's sit in the cleverness together. Thank you, Spirit. If you are someone who has been doing what they need to do, you've been keeping the structure, you've been keeping the order, you've been doing what you need to do, you had your P's and Q's, and you're dotting your I's and you're crossing your T's, and you're signing the things that need to be signed, and you got your documents in order. You got it in order. You got your life in order. If you are someone who has your life in order, then the Saturn return for you brings rewards. What a beautiful, beautiful gift. When Saturn comes all the way full around, if you have really, and that's the thing about Saturn is like, Saturn brings us gifts. I love Saturn, to be honest with you. Saturn brings us gifts. It brings us gifts. It brings us gifts. It brings us blessings. It brings us elevations. It brings us the things that we want. That's the thing about Saturn is it's going to give you what you want. It's just going to make sure that you're doing what you need to do, because once you receive what you want, that's a responsibility. You receive what you want, there's a gift coming in, you want that manifestation, the new job, the new career, a partnership, anything, an experience. You want to go on vacation, however it is in your life that you're wanting to manifest something, make change for yourself. Saturn's going to give it to you. For sure. You can always count on that, but Saturn's going to make sure before you receive that thing that you're doing what you need to do, because once it comes through, that's a responsibility now. And that means you need to be able to take care of it. And if you're not able to take care of it, Saturn is that father energy. So if that father Saturn energy sees that you're not doing what you need to do, it's really going to question you. It's going to question you. It's going to make sure that you learn the lessons that you need to learn. Sometimes it does burn, so that you can sit in what you need to sit in. So right now we have that energy going through spiritual structure and spiritual order, which is just like, it's not, I don't feel like personally, I don't feel like that's a bad thing. I am someone who loves spiritual structure and spiritual order, and I laugh about it with my friends occasionally because that's one of the things that I really teach about. That's one of, with the name Vorder, that's one of the responsibilities that I sit in spirit, is to teach about order and to teach about structure and to like help other people with order and structure. And so I'm somebody who loves it. I love to be in that militant energy because I know that when I'm in that militant energy and I'm doing what I need to do, it becomes like a flow state for me. It's taken me many years to kind of like create that and be okay with that, and also like accept it too, because that's just how I am as a person, and I fought it for a long time, but I don't want to fight it anymore. To love and accept oneself is a beautiful thing. So I'm somebody who loves that kind of energy, and the fact that Saturn is in Pisces, it's like, and we're starting over. Right now is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time to look back at what you've been doing spiritually since March. Look back at what you've been doing since March and really like, we're back at 0 degrees. We're back at 0 degrees. So in Pisces with that Saturn and it's direct, we have the opportunity to move forward. I also want to talk about too, Saturn going direct is right now in opposition to the moon. As I'm recording this, we know the moon moves kind of quickly through the sky. It transits pretty swiftly. Swift is a good word for that. The moon transits pretty swiftly. So as I'm recording this right now, Saturn direct in Pisces, it's just gone direct. It's gone direct in Pisces, is opposite the moon and the dark moon. The moon right now is in Leo. It's getting to a critical degree, the 29th degree. We're not quite there, but it's pretty close. And the dark moon in Virgo, and it is always very interesting to me when the moon and the dark moon line up in the sky, because what the dark moon is where the dark part of the moon is really as simple as that. But when you really look at the moon, it's as simple as that on the surface level. The dark moon is a lot darker than that when you really get into it. The dark moon is about the manipulation energy. It's about the wounds that nobody else sees. It's about the things that you keep secret. It's about how people maybe have manipulated you in your life. It's a very like sometimes devious energy, or it can be. And there are people in the world who study that kind of magic specifically so that they can manipulate things in the shadows so that other people can't see what they're doing. So the dark moon is a very, very powerful, it's technically considered like a more minor placement, but I don't think so, because if you really understand that placement, then it can be a placement that could either get you into a lot of trouble, or it's going to save your behind in a moment when you really need to get out of a situation. It's also about, it's not just about manipulation. It can also be about family wounds and the wounds that like very specifically like mother wounds. Also, if you're someone who experiences a mother wound, it's very specifically like that kind of energy. Right now it's in Virgo. So that dark moon is like those types of shadows that are coming through and like the manipulation energy. Virgo rules our digestive system, and it's also about the 6th house, which is about our health. And so if you have been finding that there's shadows within the food that you're eating, or there's like food magic and Virgo they go hand to hand, they go together. They are very, very clever. It's clever to go together. So when I experience the dark moon in Virgo, I'm always very mindful. I'm very courageous with my boundaries when it comes to who I commune with, how I'm communing with food, when I'm communing with food, and what I'm ingesting into my system. Because right now, with that dark moon in Virgo, and please don't use this information against someone. This is here to help facilitate protection. Right now is the perfect time that someone could, not saying that they will, but it's the perfect time that someone could come in and use that dark moon placement in Virgo to cover their tracks and keep food magic in the dark, whether that be using it against someone, which to each to each their individual spaces and practices, and may people who are moving out of love be placed back in love. I love you, love. That's what it is. And we'll move on from there. So if you're wanting to keep things in the shadows, if you're really wanting to keep your practice in the shadows, to keep it secret, to keep it warded, to keep it veiled, those types of things, then looking to the dark moon placement and where it's at in the sky up high, then that is going to assist you in understanding where the shadows naturally are so that you can sit yourself in the shadows and keep things dark if you really need to. It's a placement to be aware of. And again, that is a placement, whether it be in the chart in like our astrological day to day or in your birth chart. That placement of the dark moon is something that can be used against you. So just keep your wits about you as we move through the conversation, and you're moving in your life. Food magic, again, Virgo. Virgo is about how the earth communicates with us, how the earth does give birth, how the earth is altered at the hearth. Okay, yeah, the rhymes. Thank you. So yeah, I love Virgo energy because it's ruled by Mercury. So it's very communicative. It's how have you ever seen the how do I say, like the breeze talk with the trees, or how like when you put your hand on the ground and you can feel the energy? It's that kind of physical communication. Or you're holding hands with another person, you can feel their energy, that kind of physical communication too. Body language also, that's true. So having the dark moon in that placement is, it's a placement of keep your wits about you and understand that you can sit in the shadows if you need to. In love, may it be done. And it's in opposition right now to Saturn. So we have this Saturn going direct, and we're walking into this new chapter again that we've been able to reconsider with our spiritual structure and our spiritual order. And oppositions, I like to think of them as, because the chart of astrology is this big circle. It's like a round table, right? Oppositions are on the opposite sides of that circle. And so if you are sitting at a round, think about if you're sitting at a round table with a whole bunch of people, and if there is someone across the table from you, there's probably not going to be a lot of conversation that you're having. And if you do have a conversation with that person, then it's probably clarity. And it's also probably going to be a little bit louder. It's going to be a louder conversation because you have to talk all the way across the table. And sometimes it can be like a joyful conversation, but also probably it's not going to be too long of a conversation because it's across the table. So just keep that in mind. Opposite is also like two ends of a spectrum. And opposition could be like they're going against each other. So there's a couple different ways that this aspect of opposition can work for us. So keep that in mind as you're experiencing kind of me speaking about this and kind of reflecting on how these energies are moving for you in your life and how you're experiencing them as well. And having the dark moon and the moon right now is in Leo. So again, we're getting more to a critical degree with that. We're almost to the 29th degree. It's going to move into Virgo, honestly, probably today. Let's go look, actually. Let me update that. Let's move a couple hours forward and see when the moon moves into Virgo. It moves into Virgo later today. So probably by the time that this is up on the internet, it'll be in Virgo. So I'll read it in Virgo. All right, we'll read it in Virgo. Shout out to the moon in Leo, but also just for clarity for everyone, let's read it in Virgo. So that means that they're conjunct, they're together, the moon and the dark moon. So you have like the light of the moon. We're also in a third quarter moon right now. So things are going into the darkness. So the dark moon is actually more of the moon than the light of the moon. So also, keep that in mind too, that there's more darkness. And when we're headed into more darkness, then there's more shadows, there's more trickery, there's more ability to be schemy and a little bit wild in the shadows. That's just what it is. Didn't think I was going to be talking so much about the shadows in this show, but you know what? I do love the shadows. They're a little sneaky. That's what it is. It's the shadows. And that's also the moon. The moon definitely has like ebbs and flows with the water as well. So you have the moon in an earth sign, and it's opposing Saturn, which is Capricorn, that's earth, in Pisces, in a water sign. So you have kind of this strange, I feel the moon is most comfortable in water, Saturn is most comfortable in earth, and they are opposite each other at the table. So I feel like even though they're opposite each other at the table, expect them to kind of work together, to be for real, because yeah, honestly, those shadows, and granted, opposition sometimes we look at oppositions as things like going against each other, and that perspective is something I do want to talk about, but I don't want to talk about it quite yet. So let's look at how that, because really astrology is all about the narrative that we're working with. There's so many different ways that it can be interpreted. So I want to look at how they can work together first, and then we can look at things that might be a little bit uncomfortable, things that might not be working so well with that opposition. So yeah, thank you, Spirit, for that, just for clarity as we move forward. So we've talked about that Saturn placement, Saturn in Pisces, the structure, the order. We're starting something new. And then our emotions are asking us to move in the physical. So if these placements were to work together, that means that you are using your magic and your structural order in your practice to make sure that your emotions are moving through the physical. Maybe it's dance. Maybe you're sitting at the altar and like cleaning the altar or moving things through the altar. Because that's the other thing about Virgo, is Virgo likes things to be in order also. Virgo is also very orderly. And so when it's not as intense or serious as Saturn and the Capricorn energy, but Virgo does like things to be in order. Taurus is the earth sign that's a little bit more lackadaisical and relaxed and soft in its energy. Virgo still loves to have the order of things. Virgo is not if there's a mess, there's a place for the mess to be. There's an organized space for the mess or the stress. It's a very compartmentalized energy. And so having that with the moon right now, we have these, you may be compartmentalizing your emotions. That's true. Yep. So allow the physical communication that you're receiving and giving off, especially when it comes to your emotions, to like be aware of how that's working with your structural order right now, and kind of like the big things that are happening when they come together. Because again, if you're sitting across from the table from another, thank you, Spirit, from another person, then it's going to be bigger words and bigger conversation. It's going to be a little bit louder. So just pay attention to kind of like the big loud things that are happening when it comes to your emotions and the shadows, because again, that dark moon, they're pretty much conjunct by the end of the day today, that dark moon and the moon. So the shadows of our emotions, the shadows of the physical world, the shadows of how the physical world is communicating with us, the shadows of food magic and food energy, the shadows of our health, or if you've been having any health problems, if you've been having health issues, it could be mental health issues, physical health issues, especially gut-related things when it comes to that Virgo energy, especially gut-related things that may be upsetting your stomach. I know for me, like I experience anxiety in my stomach. I get upset tummies. It's not super fun when I'm anxious. So that type of energy is, but let's breathe through it. Yeah, because I don't really want to invite that here, but just the awareness of it, the awareness of how that could be like affecting a person and directing a person also. So that awareness, how is that interacting in a big way when it comes to your spiritual structure and order? Because again, we're starting a new chapter. We have the opportunity to restart something with our spiritual structure and spiritual order after having gone through and learned the lessons of spiritual structure and spiritual order and reconsideration with those things since March. And I'm grateful for that. Again, I want to reintegrate that I'm very, very grateful that we have the opportunity to restart Saturn energy, because the beginning of a seed, that's how the entire thing grows, whether that be a relationship, a tree, or a new chapter of Saturn in Pisces energy. So the fact that we've had time to like construct something, deconstruct it, and now we're starting again, we have like a more whole, possibly more abundant, more specific seed, because when we're specific, we're prolific. So being more specific in that. The way that this could come into a more like friction placed moment is if there is, again, because the moon is going to move out of Virgo here in a couple of days. So that dark moon will stay in opposition to Saturn. So again, I want to focus more on that energy when it comes to this opposition and the things that could not be, things to look out for that might not be so pleasant is really what it is, you know, because when you're a magical practitioner and you're someone, and thank you, Spirit, for this, when you're someone who's a magical practitioner, you have to keep your wits about you. You have to keep your wits about you, because there are people, whether they understand the magic or not of things, there are people who walk in this world who are not the love and light energy. There are people who walk in the shadows very specifically so that they can take advantage of other people. And so, especially with this dark moon, especially with the dark moon. So some protection energy, some protection words, some things of clarity and revelation, not to incite fear. You know, I revere fear, but not to bring fear here. We're moving in protection with love. You know what? How can we love and move in love in that protection energy? Because I know personally for me, I don't want to do things out of fear. I don't want to, or do things in fear. I revere fear. Fear is a very, very powerful spirit. It moves people. It's a very primal spirit. You know, fear is a very primal spirit. So I revere fear. And also, I don't really want to invite it here. Love you, fear. Might talk to you later, but not right now. You're not welcome here. I love you. So let's sit in the love energy of more of just like how to protect yourself if there were to be any rifts or there were to be any drifts when it comes to this opposition, because again, opposition is like they're going against each other. So if you were to experience an invitation where someone wants to have a meal with you and you were going to do something else for yourself in your spiritual structure and in your spiritual order, but then you say to yourself, well, you know, no, I can go have this meal with this person. I can go do that. That is a great example of the shadow in that Virgo energy coming through to disrupt your spiritual order. So be very aware. This is the opposition of them like going against each other. Be aware of how things that are happening in the indirectness, because it wasn't directly that person said, hey, let's disrupt this spiritual order of this person. They didn't say that to you. They invited you for food. You know, they invited you to you could say no and not be rude. That's really what it is. You could say no to going and having food. If you were going to sit and meditate, or you feel like you're not feeling great, you just want to sit with yourself, you know. So when it comes to Saturn in Pisces and spiritual structure and spiritual order, if there are things, and especially with this dark moon in opposition, and also generally speaking, if there are things that are disrupting your spiritual order, where you know that because let's be honest with ourselves for a minute in love. I know for me, I know when I'm doing what I need to do, and I know when I'm not doing what I need to do. I know when I'm being a little schemy, and I know when I'm not keeping order and structure for myself. We have a pretty, even if maybe we haven't been able to articulate it yet, or why we're straying from the order and the structure that we've set up. You know, I know when I'm being foolery. I know when I'm doing it. So I know, and it even if I'm unable to articulate it, it is what it is. So if you find while Saturn is in Pisces, again, that's until, when is it? Until 2025? May 24th of 2025. So if you find that things are coming through to disrupt your spiritual structure and your spiritual order, really have a moment with yourself. Sit with yourself, because Saturn being in Pisces, sit with yourself to ask yourself, is this really what you want? Is it really what you need to be doing? Or do you need to be sitting with your spiritual structure and spiritual order? Or is there a way that they can go together? Because having that Saturn in Pisces, Saturn, again, is going to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And if you're not doing what you need to do, then there's lessons that are going to come through. By the end of it, if you're doing what you need to do, then there's going to be gifts for you. There's rewards. You know, you don't do work for free. That's just what it is. Make sure that there's payment for you in the wisdom of things and the lessons of things, that you're gaining things from the Saturn work that you put in, like for sure. And I want you to receive the rewards of what you do as well in love. That's true. So with the Saturn in Pisces over the next 2 years, like a year and a half, It's been about half a year though, so like 2 years. And that lines up also with the nodal, the lunar nodes. That's very interesting. I wasn't really going to talk about that, but we just went through eclipse season. So, wow, that's I don't know the exact dates, but that's pretty spot on. About 2 years for each of those. The lunar nodes changed back in June as well. Saturn went retrograde back in June and entered Pisces. So, Saturn is a little bit up in front of those lunar nodes, but still, that I feel like is a pretty significant alignment, especially because these lunar nodes, we have the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. And moving from, thank you, Spirit. Wow. Moving from, take a moment. There's a little spider. We love the spider. Little weavers, Not little weavers. This is some weavers. All right. So let's talk about that. The North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra is a complete flip of the planetary rulers of the previous lunar nodes. So previously we had Taurus in the North Node, and that is Venusian ruled, as Venus. We had Scorpio in the South Node, Mars and Pluto. Now we have Aries in the North Node, Mars, and we have Libra in the South Node, Venusian is Venus. So we did a complete 180, a complete flip. A complete 180, a complete flip. So these eclipses are really asking you to make sure that you have a grip on things. And having that Saturn in Pisces is going to make sure that you have the spiritual structure and the spiritual order. And if you don't, then that grip might slip. So keep your wits about you. Keep up on the work that you need to do. If you need to clean your altar, if you need to clear some things. I know for me, when I experience the kind of active structure and active order, because that's really what Saturn is asking of people, is to be active in things. It's that militant energy, the kind of you need to go, you need to do, you need to be on it. And if you're not on it, then things might not come true. Also, if you're someone who has been putting weavings together, if you're someone who really is working in the magic, if you're someone who really is walking in spirit and you are doing what you need to do in spirit, beautiful for you. And also, I hope your dreams come true. You keep order for yourself and it will be done in love. It will be true, especially by the end of this Saturn in Pisces transit. So that's the update. I'm really grateful for this Saturn transit. I'm grateful that we have Saturn direct. I'm grateful for the further inspections that we went through with the lunar nodes and the dark moon and the moon and all the things. Thank you for being here. Yeah, send my love to you. Thank you for allowing me to sit and talk with you about these beautiful things. Some updates before we go, before we're done here. And I'll see you next time. Before we're done, I have sessions available on my website if you would like to book with me, both with astrology and with spirit and magic, depending upon what it is that you need for you as a practitioner. I do dual sessions if that is something that you would like or prefer. Just let me know. You can send me an email or a direct message on TikTok, or I think there's direct messages on Substack as well. So, and that's where my blog is. So if you feel that you need to book a session with me, those are available. I'm also beginning a mentorship program, of which I'm very excited for. I'm literally so excited. This is something that I've been dreaming about for years, literal years, and now it's here. So it starts February 9th. I'm taking on 12 students because it's going to be a big commitment. It's a 6-moon cycle transformation. We're going to go through every new moon and full moon. There's going to be group spaces that are held together, and there's going to be teachings about kind of what I went through today. We're talking about the placements, but I'm also going to be weaving in the moon magic, talking specifically about moon magic and how to amplify your practice, enhance things in your practice, different things that can be worked. There'll be time in each of those group spaces to ask questions, and we can have more of like a communal space at the end. And so that I'm very much looking forward to. And then in between each new moon and full moon, you will receive a personal session with me. So if there's things that you want to work on in your practice, there's weavings you want to work on in your practice. And I'm doing this for 6 moon cycles very specifically because I believe the first new moon, let me double check. I believe the first new moon that I have this booked out for is going to be a new moon in Aquarius. And by the end of this 6 moon mentorship cycle, then there will be a full moon in Aquarius. That is true. So February 9th is the new moon in Aquarius, and then July 21st is the full moon in Aquarius. And that, for me, is a very important lesson in the moon weavings and in the moon magic. So if there's more information about it over on my website at www.vordr.art, I am running an early bird special. So if you sign up before December 1st, it's 10% off. If you want to join me, I'm so ready to welcome you. There's payment plans and payment options available. So if you have questions about that mentorship, feel free to email me at mgmt@vordr.art. And I look forward to working with you. I'm so very excited. I'm so very excited. Yes, I am. Other updates. The book is out officially, Book of Spells, Book 1. It's Poetry to Educate the Witch. That is available through Barnes & Noble. It's also over on my website. The link for that is on my website, www.vordr.art. What else? What other updates? And the blog update. If you feel called to go sit with the blog, then that is beautiful. This podcast and the blog are reader funded. So if you want to sign up for a monthly subscription, I send my gratitude to you. If not, and you just want to send a donation through for the work that I do and what I bring as an offering to you, there are places at the bottom of my website to leave a donation. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for you spending your time with me, because that's also a donation. That's also support. So I'm grateful for that. It's not a money donation, but it's still a donation. It's still you actively making the decision to sit with me. And I would not be able to do what I do if it was not for people like you. So thank you. And I send my gratitude and my love wholesomely, and in receptivity to you. Yes, I do. I love you. And you know what? May the messages that have come through sit with you in love. May they be received in love, and may your path be warded in love. That's what it is. And I send my love through to you, and I will talk to you next time.